Welcome to Stick to Sports. I'm Luke Owens.
And I'm Matt Watling. The Yankees lost in the ALCS. Sorry, Luke.
Rip.
Clemson is falling despite an undefeated record, and Zion Williamson may never play a game in the NBA.
Roll it. Josh Allen is tall, looks good in shorts, and can throw a ball 2 million yards. After a two-point conversion run on Sunday, Allen launched the ball into orbit, with it finally landing just under the press box. And Matt, it's the best thing we saw this week.
Yeah, and you say best thing, I say most dangerous. Because if you look really closely, if the camera followed the ball, he nearly hit the Big J journalist in the press box, getting his big old press box Italian meat sub, his sandwich. He was hungry watching this game. And he almost got hit.
Yeah, but you got to be paying attention. You got to be paying attention.
Oh,
if you're
now
up
when you're in the press box.
This is actually an awesome moment because Jim Kelly bet Josh Allen before the game that he could not get a ball up to that. Actually, Josh Allen said he could throw it out of the stadium. He ended up landing it at the press box, and I think he maybe took a little bit off of that.
So he failed, is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
So why is this the worst thing we saw then?
No, it's not. I think he took a little bit off. I think he could have gone out of the stadium if he wanted to. I mean, this dude's got a rocket launcher attached to his right shoulder.
All right, and without further ado, let's dive into our headlines, Luke.
And after the Astros defeated the Yankees in 6 games, they're set to face the Nationals in the World Series. And currently they lead the Astros by a score of 5-2 in the 6th inning. Now, many are saying this World Series is just a formality. But, Matt, do the Nats have a legit shot in this series?
You know, I do think they do. I think they do, and I said it last week. We don't have to resurface it. Team of destiny, first of all. But then you look at this team, and the one real big question is rest versus rust. The Nationals haven't played in 8 straight days. The Astros coming off a game a couple days ago on Saturday, and I wonder how big of an influence that plays.
Right, and I agree with you in that sense, but you know, it's kind of cheating when we look now and say the Nationals were able to get 5 runs off of Garrett Cole. Max Scherzer pitched a decent game, and these pitching matchups to me are dead even. It's going to be about what offense shows up, and it was the Nationals that showed up. But if we look at these teams by the numbers, they're very similar.
Yeah, you look at it and you just say the Astros, yeah, they weren't hitting as well. But you look at the Nationals, they won, they swept.
Yeah.
So their numbers are going to be a little bit inflated. You look at the home run total and even the run total. That's why we put it at runs per game, because you look at the Nationals, they only played 3 games in that NLCS.
Yeah,
so it's really just a different complexion, and the Nationals just steamrolling everyone. You wonder if you want to see some adversity in those early rounds like the Astros faced.
Yeah, and let's not forget this Nationals team is one that people counted out back in May. And now we're looking at October in the World Series, and they're right up there. And even with Juan Soto struggling going into this year, obviously, or into the series, he hit that home run. But you got Rendon, Robles, Kendrick, Turner, Zimmerman. This is a really great lineup that I think can go toe-to-toe with Houston.
Right, I think the big difference for this series is that you look at the Astros and you say, Game 4, it's a bullpen game. They don't have the Yankees bullpen.
Right.
They have the Astros bullpen, not as good. And you look at the Nationals, their 4th game starter is Anibal Sanchez, who's a very serviceable, if not good, starter in the playoffs.
Yeah, and for the Astros, actually, you know, Will Harris and Joe Smith pitched really well, but they're not going to be the guys opening. They're those guys that are going to pitch more in the 7th and 8th inning. So to me, this offense came in struggling. I mean, Carlos Correa at 182, Springer 160, Alvarez .045, Bregman 167. They got very timely hits in that ALCS, but if that doesn't happen in the World Series, I like the Nationals in this one.
I do too, and you obviously tweeted before the game started. You had Nationals in 6, and I got to ride with them as well. You know, I called them Team of Destiny. Still waiting for that first like on that tweet, so follow me at MattWatling99.
No one's gonna like that tweet.
I don't think they are anymore.
Out of principle, I definitely won't.
See, that's just rude.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of messed up. I'm sorry. But moving from one national champion to another. Clemson won a convincing national championship game against Alabama last season and rightfully was put at #1 in the country to start the season. But despite a 7-0 start, the Tigers now find themselves at #4 in this week's poll, Matt.
Yeah, and to me, the rankings don't necessarily matter all that much. I look at them, the Clemson, I say they still have control of their own destiny. I mean, if they win their conference, they're going to be in the college football playoff. And if they're the 4 seed playing Bama 1, it doesn't matter, because you're going to have to play Bama eventually. You're going to play a good team. I think college football is too deep to care about seeding as long as you're in that top 4.
I really think the only team that Clemson struggled with this year was North Carolina, where they only won by a point. North Carolina tried to go for 2 for the win, didn't get it. So other than that, they've been pretty dominant. But you look at the teams ahead of them. You got Alabama, really only beat A&M. LSU beats Florida and Texas, and Ohio State's just been crushing people. So Clemson at #4, I think, is a little bit disrespectful to a team that steamrolled Alabama last year in the national championship and still has Trevor Lawrence, even though he's struggling a little bit this year.
He struggled a lot, and I'm wondering if people are finally getting tape on him. You know, last year he came in about midway through the season, or I think, Game 5 or Game 4, you don't know too much about him. So you wonder and you say, is he good enough? Is he a legitimate star? And yes, people love him, but at the same time, maybe people are figuring him out now.
Yeah, and you look at the guys in front of him. I mentioned Alabama. They have Tua, who's hurt, but they still have him. Joe Burrows for LSU, Justin Fields for Ohio State. Those are the guys that are in the Heisman running, and we were expecting Trevor Lawrence to be there and Travis Etienne, and neither of them have kind of been there. So like you said, they're kind of going to maybe sleepwalk their way into that college football playoff, but I still think they're very dangerous.
Yeah, and for me, I think you look at Alabama and you say they've been dominant, they've been so good. And for me, Clemson's offensive line just hasn't necessarily proven it to me just yet. And I think that could be a big issue where you look at their quarterback play, not that great. Their running game, clearly not that great with Etienne. And I wonder if that's kind of the issue where it stems from, where maybe Dabo needs to get that largest contract in college football and kind of put it to work a little bit.
Right, but is it really Clemson's fault for playing in the ACC?
No, and I think the big thing here is that I'm hoping that when there's so much fluctuation among the top four when no one loses, is hopefully teams start playing better and more talented out-of-conference schedules. Because I want to see Clemson play some good teams.
Yeah.
Let me see,
And we
not
all wanna see
Alabama, but
that.
let me see LSU.
Yeah.
Let me see a real challenge for you to show that you can actually beat a good team until the national playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, Alabama and Nick Saban kind of talked about how it's so tough for top teams to schedule against good opponents, and I think Clemson maybe has also struggled in that regard.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll move on to Steve Kerr telling NBC Sports Bay Area that the team does not expect Klay Thompson to play this year after suffering a torn ACL in the postseason. And with the loss of Kevin Durant in free agency, this feels like the year where Golden State might regress just quite a bit, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their depth. I think that's the biggest issue on this team right now. You look at their depth chart. The starting lineup is decent. You have Steph Curry, you have D'Angelo Russell, you have Glenn Robinson III, you have Kevin Looney. Then the bench is really where I think it gets a little bit ugly for Golden State.
Yeah, and I think I look at their bench, and sorry to cut you off, Luke, but they just don't have much there, and even their starting five isn't that good. You have one injury, there's a problem.
Yeah.
You don't have much depth at forward. I think Draymond Green's very good, but he's not. He's very good, but there's no one else with him. You know, Kevin Looney or Kevon Looney, I don't love him either. There's just not a lot there for me.
Yeah, and on the bench, I mean, it's Alec Burks, Jacob Evans, Pascal, Willie Cauley-Stein. You look, Marquise Chris. You got a rookie in Jordan Poole. I mean, these aren't names that move the needle. I think losing Iguodala and Livingston was really big this offseason, those veteran guys. Now that bench is super young. And like you said, if there's one injury on this team, they could miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and to me, the big issue is sign and trade for D'Angelo Russell, where you sit and you say, great, you've got the superstar or budding star in this league, but he's your third best guard on the team when Klay Thompson's healthy. He's getting paid close to max contract value. Can you use that money and better your forward group, which really doesn't look good to me?
Yeah, Klay Thompson to me is just such a huge loss because he gets it going on offense, obviously. He's lights out shooter. He moves well without the ball. But also on defense, he's the guy that lines up with every team's best player. And when they lose that, I think that loses a lot in their lineup because Steph Curry is a guy that doesn't play great defense.
And looking at D'Angelo Russell, he's not a great defender either. So now you have two guards that are really defensive liabilities, and you look at some of the best teams in the NBA, they'll have really good guards. I mean, look at Ben Simmons. Not that he's an electric scorer, but he's a guy that really could do some damage. Just looking at the NBA across the league, Kyrie Irving, another guy where he could be, when those two teams play, and obviously that wouldn't really be in the playoffs until the finals, which probably wouldn't happen. Those type of elite guards won't be guardable against Golden State.
Right, and moving on to the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs blew out the Broncos 30-6 on Thursday night, but they lost star quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes suffered a dislocated kneecap. That injury usually is about to 3 to 6 week recovery. Matt, are the Chiefs in trouble here?
I don't think so. I think you look at this team, you look at their division, and it's not great. There's nothing special between Denver, the Chargers, Oakland, nothing really special there. So, yeah, it's a tough injury and a scare-looking one at that.
And gross to see them pop it back in as well.
Oh, yeah. And oof, right there, too. You see, like, the ankle.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, but this is a team that goes beyond Patrick Mahomes, and you almost want to see them go through this adversity. Maybe the defense figures something out. You win a couple games defensively. You work on your run game with LaShawn McCoy. And from there, maybe you're a better team as a whole when he comes back.
I think the biggest news out of this is the Patriots have all but locked up that #1 seed in the AFC, which I think is big going through Foxborough in the postseason.
And that could be huge, too, because you saw, even though the Patriots were able to beat them at Arrowhead, now you're looking to have it in New England, and they're almost unbeatable there.
Yeah, agreed. And, I mean, you've got the Packers, the Vikings, Titans, Chargers, Raiders, Patriots coming up. That's his next 6 weeks for the Chiefs. Those are some tough games, and I still think they're going to win their division, but I think that number 1 seed was really big for them to grab this year, and they obviously aren't going to be able to do it.
Right, but even defensively, look at them. Even if they make it to the playoffs, you saw what the Colts did to them, shutting down Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
You saw what other teams can do to them. I think Houston, the other team, and those weren't even the elite teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
What if it was New Orleans doing this to them? Or imagine what New Orleans or Green Bay or the Chicago defense could do to this team. I mean, it's a team that looks so good, but it's not really complete.
Yeah, and it's going to be Matt Moore taking the reins. I mean, he's okay. He's not going to turn the ball over a lot. But this is a guy that was retired last year coaching high school football, and now all of a sudden he's the starting quarterback for the Chiefs.
He was doing the same thing that Josh McCown was doing?
Yeah, they both were coaching high school football. I think Matt Moore was out in California. Andy Reid gave him a call, said, hey, we need a backup quarterback. You're the guy we want. Comes in, and now he's the starting quarterback. It's just crazy how stuff works out like that.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll be right back here on Stick to Sports.
When we come back, Andy will join me for a special edition of Andy's Stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Stick to Sports. I'm joined now by Andy Guidi, but instead of Andy's Stories this week, we have a special NBA prediction segment due to the start of the season tonight. So Andy, let's start with that elephant in the room. You've got the new look Los Angeles Clippers winning the NBA Finals this year. So what do you like from them this year?
I feel like the Clippers, they had the 2 big signings of the summer with Paul George. They traded for Paul George and signing Kawhi Leonard. I feel like they have really good depth, 1 through 12. They round out the roster with Will Williams and Montrezl Harrell, 2 six man of the year contenders coming off the bench, and they still have Patrick Beverley in the starting lineup. They're going to have a ferocious perimeter defense. Their big men are a little bit shallow, but I feel like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going to make up for that. And the Clippers look really good this year. I also have the Lakers possibly taking it too, but no, I have the Clippers taking it this year.
Yeah, so you got Bucks over 76ers in the East, Clippers over Lakers, then Clippers over Bucks in the finals. So what do you like about the Bucks coming out of that Eastern Conference?
I feel like Giannis, his progression is just going to continue. He was looking very well in the FIBA World Cup this year and in the preseason. I think, and he's also added the 3-point shot to his game. I think that's going to take his game to the next level. I like what I see from the Bucks this year. They did lose Malcolm Brogdon in the offseason, and that might hurt them a little bit. But
Yeah.
I feel like Giannis, he's going to make up the difference. So the Bucks are great this year.
Yeah, I like both teams kind of coming out of LA. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the Lakers just because maybe part of me is hoping that LeBron has one more of those deep playoff runs in him. But like you said, the Clippers play great team defense. They have a very deep bench, and they're going to be loaded. I think the only question is with the Clippers and the Lakers is how long does it take for them to kind of get that chemistry going? And once both teams get it going, I think that's what's going to be the difference in the West.
Yeah, I agree with the Lakers. The Lakers look pretty good. They have 2 out of 10 of the best players in the NBA. I'm a little bit questionable about their depth. I don't know if the guys around them are really consistent. And then they have the injury with Kyle Kuzma. We don't know when he's going to come back. But
Right.
It's the championship is going to come out of the Western Conference. It's going to come out of Staples Center. So we're going to see what happens.
Right, and not for nothing, I've got the Lakers over the Sixers, so we'll see how it pans out. And as for your individual awards, you have Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo, nailed it, winning that MVP once again. So what does he have to do to be even better going into this season?
I think he has to improve his playmaking. There were times during last season, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals, where he was getting double teamed, by Toronto, and he was forcing up shots. He wasn't really looking for his teammates. I feel like he needs to, improve his playmaking. And obviously, the elephant in the room is he has to improve his jump shot. He's so unguardable going to the rim. How is he going to be unguardable from outside? I've seen him working on his shot, and if he just works on that mid-range shot, works on that 3-point shot, he could be one of the best players ever.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis, you talk about a guy that averaged 27.7 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, shoots a great field goal
That's
percentage.
without shooting any 3-pointers either.
Yeah, if he can get that 3-point shot down, I think he's going to be extremely lethal coming out with the Bucks this year. And like you said, they kind of collapsed on him in the playoffs. He's got to get a little bit better at dishing out to corners. And it's no secret that Andy is a big fan of the New York Knicks. He has them finishing at 12th in the East, a little bit outside the playoffs once again. So, Andy, what do you see from this team? Are you looking for growth? Are you looking for them to make that playoff push? What are you looking for out of your Knicks?
I'm definitely looking for growth. If we could make a playoff push, that would be like the highlight of the year. I'm looking for growth from our 3rd overall pick, R.J. Barrett, Mitch Robinson, who's a shot blocking machine, Alonzo Trier, Dennis Smith. I feel like we have a nice little young core. I was a little bit confused by our free agency signings because we have guys taking away minutes from them. But I feel like we have a nice collection of vets and young guys, and hopefully we can make a playoff push.
Yeah, and what I really like about this Knicks team is is they're going to be gritty. They're going to take you the full game. They're going to take you 4 quarters. They're going to keep games close. They're not going to get blown out. I have them right about that 30 to 35 win range. I think that's an attainable goal for them, and it's growing that young core, like you said. I mean, you get R.J. Barrett. You want to see those strides from Kevin Knox shooting the ball. Alonzo Trier had a great rookie year. Mitchell Robinson with more minutes is going to be, in my opinion, a sleeper for a Defensive Player of the Year award. So I think the Knicks are going to be very gritty. And despite losing Kawhi Leonard, you still have the Raptors finishing 4th in the Eastern Conference. So what do you like from them going into this year?
I like that they stayed pat. They made a couple of small moves along the margins with signing Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and Stanley Johnson. And as you can see, last year they were a pretty good team when Kawhi Leonard was out with load management. I thought they're a very good team in the Eastern Conference, and the Eastern Conference is a lot weaker this year. Anybody could come out the Eastern Conference to win the championship. So
I think the big question for this Raptors team, you lose Kawhi Leonard. Can Pascal Siakam be worth that new contract? Can he become that superstar? I think he has all the potential in the world, but the question is, is this the year that he's that superstar, or does he take that extra year? But Siakam's a guy I absolutely love to watch.
Yeah, I love him too. He's great on defense. He's such a such an important player in transition. He can get to the rim at will. He has handle. He has an improving shot. Pascal Siakam, if he could take another leap, we could talk about Toronto being in title contender status at the end of the year. So
that's a hot take. I don't have him quite in that realm, but I think it's definitely possible. And finally, the new-look Pelicans have been a big topic of conversation this offseason. You have them just missing the playoffs in 9th place. So what would the Pels need to do in order to sneak into one of those final playoff spots?
I love what the Pelicans did this offseason, adding Zion Williamson, Jackson Hayes, J.J. Redick, and Derek Favors. But I feel like the team is just a little bit too young, and they don't have enough star power. And the teams ahead of them, they're just more seasoned, more experienced. So I just couldn't put them in the playoffs this year. But next year, I feel like they'll definitely crack the conversation.
Yeah, and that big loss, of course, for New Orleans is Anthony Davis. He goes to the Lakers, but I really like the return the Pelicans got. I've always been high on Lonzo Ball. I think Brandon Ingram, he's not quite KD light like people want him to be, but I think he's definitely a dynamic playmaker. Obviously, Zion Williamson is a guy that you really hope can play a significant amount of games. I know you have him as your Rookie of the Year. Do you think he's going to play enough games to be able to kind of grab that Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I feel like he's that good of a player. We've seen him in the preseason shooting at an efficient clip, getting to rim at ease. He just has to stay healthy. I know he has a big, large frame, but I feel like he's that good. If he could also improve his jump shot, watch out. The lead is in trouble.
Right, and we're going to take another break here on Stick to Sports. Big thanks to producer Andy Guidi for joining me today at the desk for his predictions. Stay tuned. You're watching Stick to Sports right here on WTOP 10.
Welcome back to Stick to Sports.
Let's jump right into our big talk. For the first time in franchise history, the New York Yankees failed to win a World Series in a decade. And after falling to Houston in 6 games, the Yankees will have to spend yet another offseason wondering exactly what went wrong there.
Yeah, I think it really kind of starts with, to a certain degree, the way that they use their bullpen. And I see their bullpen, and I sit here and I look at what Zach Britton said, and he said relievers can be figured out if they're overworked. And the Yankees overworked their relievers. And I think that's really the marquee issue, is that they have 1 or 2 good pitches, relievers. That's why they're not starters. And that's the words coming from Zach Britton's mouth. So I think that was a big issue, on top of the lack of hitting.
But the Yankees had a 3.13 team ERA. I would sign up for that any day of the week if I'm the Yankees. They pitched fine. I mean, Chad Green and Adam Ottavino had some rough series, and Chapman blew that game 6. But overall, I think it was the offense that really just failed to show up. They didn't have any timely hitting. They hit .214 as a team. And you have Brett Gardner, Gary Sanchez, and Edwin Encarnacion making 3 straight outs in a row for the entirety of the 6 games. I think that's the biggest problem with the offense.
Yeah, I think it is. But also, I look at their bullpen, and I say, it's not enough. You need starters. And I think you also kind of look at the losses that you have in this offseason, and it kind of, I don't say bodes well, but you're not losing pieces that you need to have.
Yeah, I mean, you lose maybe Didi Gregorius. I think that could be a big loss. The starting shortstop, the guy that took over
but there's
after Derek Jeter left.
As cold-hearted as it is to say, there are replacements for Didi. When you have Glaber, you have LeMahieu who can play second base or short. There's options here for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in the sense, and also Didi Gregorius is definitely a product of Yankee Stadium, and he's kind of a guy that uses a short porch. Dellin Betances is coming off an injury. Chapman could have an opt-out. Gardner, to me, should be off this team.
Yeah, I think you have Maben instead. You have Clint Frazier as well as
Mike Tauchman.
Like those ones. Tauchman, too. all these guys that really came up and showed up, there's just no need for Gardner.
Yeah, I mean, Didi's a fan favorite, obviously, and the fans love him. But to me, he's a guy that's not necessary. When there's so many guys out on the free agency market going in the next year that I like better than him.
Yeah, and even if you place him in-house with Glaber or LeMahieu, I look at what they can bring in, and I say it's Garrett Cole, Steven Strasburger, it's a trade. Because you need another starter. And the thing that's crazy to me is, one, you have so much to move with Gio or Andujar, Florial, Frazier. And something that's interesting is Cashman said that Davy Garcia has not been ruled out, and it's not as flashy as everyone thinks it sounds. He said he literally doesn't know if he's going to be on the team or not.
On that roster, yeah, and I think he'd be a great addition to that
But
roster.
at 20 years old, he's going to make the roster.
I mean, if I'm Brian Cashman, I don't know if this is a move that you want to make after losing to the Astros. You hand Garrett Cole a blank check, and you say, how much money do you want on this check? And if he says $300 million, you give him $300 million because he's that.
Yeah.
He's
I
just
don't
that
think the
good.
Yankees do it because they're weird. They're all analytics heavy, but they need to make a move like that.
Yeah, for the fans' sake especially. I mean, they're going to be clamoring for Cashman's head if he blows this free agency.
Yeah, and to the NBA we go. The 2019 #1 overall pick, Zion Williamson, has had his name around the media, but not for the greatest of reasons. Zion has a torn meniscus and will be out 6 to 8 weeks, Luke.
Yeah, this is a big loss for the Pelicans, but also I think it's just a big loss for the NBA in general. I mean, this is probably the most hyped up prospect since LeBron James. You want Zion Williamson to have a successful rookie year, and already 6 to 8 weeks he's going to be out, and now the Pelicans probably going to manage him very differently going forward.
Yeah, certainly. You kind of look at it. But I also sit here and I say, he's not the next Derrick Rose. He's had one injury in college, and that's because his shoe exploded on him.
Right.
And this is an injury that doctors are saying you should make a full recovery. John Tavares, the Islanders, a sport that really has just as much dynamicism and agility in it in hockey. He had a similar injury with a torn meniscus, and he came back. He was fine. Obviously, there's less pressure on his knees and his joints gliding instead of jumping. But Zion is expected to be fine.
I think the question here is Zion Williamson too big, too explosive, too athletic for the game of basketball?
A little chonk, if you will.
A little chonk boy.
He's the second heaviest player in the NBA behind Boban Marjanovic.
Yeah.
I say that right?
And that's because he's 7'2", 7'3"?
Yeah, he's massive. I mean, Zion's 6'7". He's not the tallest NBA player, and he's the second heaviest. But also, something that's interesting, the Pelicans said that, according to Shams, they're not managing his weight. They don't care about his weight, which is interesting to me.
Because I don't think his weight is the issue here. I just think that, I mean, it is an issue because when you're top heavy, there's going to be some knee issues, but he's not like he's like too overweight. He can get up and down the court. Like I said, he's athletic. He's explosive. He's still a dunker. So to me, that's not the biggest issue here. I just think that something, I don't know if it's workload or what, going into college, he also had those injuries.
Yeah, it's certainly weird.
Yeah, and to end our show tonight, we have our cheer and jeer of the week.
Yeah, one cheer to the Washington Nationals reliever Sean Doolittle, who's doing his best Luke Skywalker impression while celebrating the National League Championship Series victory.
Absolutely love this move by Doolittle.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
And then there's this guy. You're right in the middle. What are you guys talking about?
And just that last little clip what are you guys talking about? Because he knows what you're talking about. He's talking about your team. You guys won.
He just comes out waving the lightsaber. Hey, what are you guys talking about? Like he's like
That's
a little
amazing.
kid, like walking up to the adults, like, hey, what are you guys talking about?
Hey, Luke, guess what?
What?
I'm your father.
I've heard that joke so many times in my life. It's never been from my dad. My dad is the king of dad jokes. He's never once made the Luke Skywalker joke. It's always other people, which is a shame. And moving on to our jeer of the week. Before Oklahoma took the field against West Virginia, the Sooner Schooner came out of the locker room, which is a wagon pulled by a horse with people riding on it. Last Saturday, however, they took a spill. And let's take a look at that. Down they go. Horses are gone. The people are down. Absolutely tragic scene in Oklahoma.
Were there any injuries? Do we know?
No, they were okay, and they kind of
good. Now I can make
they
sure
came
about
off
it.
with the training staff. It was amazing. They had like their arms around them and everything.
Did you know PETA wasn't too happy about that, actually. They said exploiting animals for sport is unnecessary.
Oh, my
Keep
goodness.
horses off the field.
This isn't horse raining. They're just pulling the wagon.
Not raining.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's a good point. Why are we like combating horse racing instead of just riding a horse with a carriage on it?
It's fun.
It doesn't make
They
any
got
sense.
a carriage and everything.
Now, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Stick to Sports.
But be sure to tune in, same time, same place, next week, right here on WTOP 10.